Become mentally unbreakable. Train your mind like a Stoic. Imagine losing everything. Not some of it. Everything. Your position. Your wealth. Your reputation. The people you love most. Stripped away, one by one, until there is almost nothing left. Now imagine that none of it breaks you. Imagine that after all of it, after the betrayal, the grief, the humiliation, the loss, you wake up the next morning. And you are still standing. Still thinking clearly. Still moving forward. Still, somehow, at peace. Most people hear that and think, that's impossible. No one is built like that. But they are wrong. Because history has already given us proof. Not in self-help books. Not in motivational speeches. But in the actual lives of real human beings who endured conditions so extreme that most modern minds cannot fully comprehend them. A man who was born a slave. Who was beaten so severely as a child that he walked with a permanent limp for the rest of his life. Who owned almost nothing material his entire existence. And who became one of the most influential thinkers in human history, whose words are still changing lives 2,000 years after his death. His name was Epictetus. And he was mentally unbreakable. There was another man. Born to wealth and power beyond imagination. Emperor of the largest empire the world had ever seen. Surrounded by luxury, flattery, and every temptation known to humanity. And yet he woke up every single morning and chose discipline over indulgence, service over selfishness, wisdom over comfort. He fought wars. He buried children. He watched people he trusted betray him. He governed 50 million people, many of whom wanted him dead. And still, he remained unshaken. His name was Marcus Aurelius. And he too was mentally unbreakable. Then there was the man who had everything the world offers, wealth, fame, the ear of emperors, and had it all taken from him in a single afternoon. Exiled. Stripped. Left with nothing but his mind. Seneca. Who sat in that exile and wrote some of the most powerful words ever committed to paper. Who used his catastrophe as a classroom. Who returned from ruin not diminished, but forged. A single deep musical tone begins to rise slowly. What did these men know that you do not? What did they carry inside them that could not be taken, could not be broken, could not be extinguished no matter what life threw at them? That is exactly what you are about to find out. Stay with me. Because what you are going to hear today is not theory. It is not inspiration for the moment. It is a complete blueprint, tested by fire, proven by history, for building a mind that cannot be broken. No matter what comes. Music builds, ancient, cinematic, immense. Introduction. Welcome to Stoic Mindset, the channel where we take the ancient wisdom of the Stoics and forge it into something you can actually use in your life today. If this is your first time here, welcome. You found this at the right moment. If you have been here before, you already know what we are building. And today, we go deeper than we have ever gone before. Before we begin, if the opening of this video already stirred something inside you. If something in those three names, Epictetus, Marcus Aurelius, Seneca, resonated with a part of you that is tired of being fragile. Subscribe to this channel right now. Because this is what we do here. Every single week. We go to the source. We mine the wisdom that has survived 2,000 years of human catastrophe. And we hand it to you, not as philosophy, but as a weapon for your mind. Subscribe. And let us begin. The nature of an unbreakable mind. Before we talk about how to build an unbreakable mind, we need to understand what one actually is. Because the modern world has given us a false picture. We tend to think of mental toughness as the absence of feeling. The Stoic, in the popular caricature, is a stone-faced, emotionless figure who feels nothing and therefore cannot be hurt. That is not Stoicism. That is suppression. And suppression is not strength. It is a pressure cooker with the valve welded shut. The Stoic philosophers themselves were explicit about this. Marcus Aurelius grieved the death of his children. Seneca wrote with raw honesty about fear and anxiety. Epictetus spoke openly about the pain of his early life. They were not people who felt nothing. They were people who felt everything, and were not controlled by what they felt. That distinction is everything. An unbreakable mind is not a numb mind. It is a trained mind. A mind that has learned to create space between stimulus and response. Between what happens and what you do about it. Between the event and the meaning you assign to it. The Stoics called this the inner citadel. Imagine a fortress built inside your mind. Its walls are not made of stone. They are made of clarity, about what is real, what is yours, what matters, and what does not. And no external force, no circumstance, no person, no loss, can breach those walls unless you open the gate yourself. The entire project of Stoic philosophy is the construction and defense of that citadel. And today, we are going to build yours. The first pillar, the dichotomy of control. Every building needs a foundation. And the foundation of an unbreakable mind is the single most important idea in all of Stoic philosophy. There are things within your control. And there are things outside your control. That is it. That is the whole thing. Epictetus opens his Enchiridion, his handbook for living, with these exact words: some things are in our control and others not. It sounds almost embarrassingly simple. And yet the vast majority of human suffering, the anxiety, the resentment, the bitterness, the sense of helplessness, comes directly from failing to honor this distinction. We torture ourselves over what other people think of us. We lose sleep over outcomes we cannot determine. We ruin our present moments obsessing over a future we cannot control and a past we cannot change. We are perpetually at war with reality. And we lose. Every time. The Stoics said, stop fighting the things you cannot change. Not because they do not matter. But because that fight is one you cannot win, and the energy you spend losing it is energy stolen from the battles you can. What is in your control? Your thoughts. Your judgments. Your choices. Your effort. Your values. Your response to what happens to you. The quality of your attention. The direction of your will. That is your territory. That is your kingdom. And it is, once you truly claim it, completely sovereign. What is outside your control? Everything else. The weather. The economy. What people say about you. Whether your work is recognized. Whether your health holds. Whether the people you love stay or go. None of that is yours. You can influence some of it. You can work toward outcomes. But you cannot control the results, only the effort. The moment you truly internalize this, and I mean truly internalize it, in the marrow of your thinking, everything changes. Because suddenly, you are no longer a victim of circumstance. You are a sovereign of your own inner world. And the outer world, no matter how chaotic, cannot touch the one thing that is irreducibly yours. Your response. Your character. Your choice of how to meet this moment. That is the first pillar of an unbreakable mind. And it must be laid before anything else can stand. The second pillar, the art of reframing. There was a moment in Marcus Aurelius' reign when a plague swept through the Roman Empire. Millions died. His army was devastated. His leadership was tested from every direction simultaneously. And in the middle of all of it, he wrote in his private journal, "The impediment to action advances action. What stands in the way becomes the way." This is one of the most powerful sentences ever written by a human being. And it describes the second pillar of an unbreakable mind, the art of reframing. The Stoics understood that events are neutral. They carry no inherent meaning. The meaning, every single time, is assigned by the mind of the person experiencing them. This is not wishful thinking. It is not telling yourself everything is fine when it is not. It is the deliberate, practiced skill of asking, what is this obstacle actually offering me? Because every difficulty, without exception, contains within it the exact conditions required for you to develop something you currently lack. The relationship that ends forces you to develop self-sufficiency you never built when you were comfortable. The job you lose forces you to confront the work you were doing out of obligation rather than meaning. The health crisis forces you to confront mortality and strip away the trivial. The failure forces you to develop the resilience and humility that success never could have taught you. This is not toxic positivity. This is not pretending the thing does not hurt. It is looking at the thing that hurt you, clearly, honestly, without flinching, and asking the Stoics question, what does this make possible? Ryan Holiday, writing about this concept, called it the obstacle is the way. But Marcus Aurelius lived it first. And the men and women who practice this reframing consistently do not become immune to hardship. They become alchemists of it. They take what would destroy others and transmute it into the very thing that makes them exceptional. Practice this every time something goes wrong, which means you will have ample opportunity. The third pillar, negative visualization. Here is a practice that sounds, on the surface, like the opposite of everything modern self-help teaches. Modern self-help says, visualize success. Focus on the positive. Manifest what you want. The Stoics said, imagine losing everything you have. Not as a punishment. Not as a pessimistic exercise. But as one of the most powerful tools ever devised for generating genuine gratitude, realistic preparation, and unshakable resilience. They called it premeditatio malorum, the premeditation of hardship. Seneca practiced it daily. He would deliberately imagine the worst outcomes, poverty, illness, exile, the death of the people he loved, not to live in fear of them, but to make peace with them. To remove their power to devastate him by looking at them first, steadily, and choosing how he would respond if they arrived. He wrote, let us prepare our minds as if we had come to the very end of life. Imagine your home is gone. Imagine your savings disappear. Imagine your health deteriorates. Imagine the relationship you most depend on ends. Now ask yourself, who are you in that scenario? Not what would you have. Not what would you feel in the first moments of shock. But who, in character, would you choose to be? What would you still have? What could not be taken? The answer to that question is your actual foundation. And here is the second gift of this practice, when you return from that imagined darkness to the reality of your actual morning, the coffee that is warm, the body that moves, the person sleeping nearby, the work that challenges you, the sky outside your window, something shifts. Gratitude of a completely different quality arrives. Not the forced gratitude of a journal prompt. But the stunned, quiet recognition of the person who just realized they have been sitting in abundance while treating it like furniture. Practice this. It will not make you dark. It will make you awake. The fourth pillar, controlling the inner voice. There is a voice in your head. You know the one. It is the voice that tells you that you are not enough. That the thing you are trying will fail. That people are judging you. That you do not deserve the good things in your life. That the bad things coming are probably your fault. The Stoics were the first systematic thinkers to look directly at this inner voice and say, you are not obligated to believe it. Epictetus taught that the root of all human suffering is not what happens to us, it is what we tell ourselves about what happens to us. He called these impressions, the automatic interpretations our minds attach to events. And his radical, liberating insight was this: you can examine an impression before you accept it. You can catch the thought, this situation is unbearable, and ask, is that actually true? Or is that the first emotional interpretation, not yet examined, not yet tested? You can hear the voice say you are going to fail, and instead of accepting it as fact, treat it as a hypothesis that requires evidence before it earns your belief. This is not the work of a moment. It is the work of years. But every single day, in small moments, you can practice the gap, that tiny space between a thought and your relationship to it. Marcus Aurelius called this the ruling faculty, the part of you that stands behind all the noise of the mind and watches it without being swept away. It is not cold or removed. It is clear. And it is the most powerful capacity a human being possesses. Most people spend their entire lives never discovering they have it. You now know you do. The fifth pillar, virtue as the only real wealth. This is the pillar that the modern world resists most. Because we have been taught, quietly, insistently, by everything around us, that the measure of a life is its outcomes. Its possessions. Its status. Its comfort. The Stoics said the exact opposite. They said there is only one thing of genuine and unconditional value. Only one thing that cannot be taken, cannot be destroyed, cannot be diminished by any external force. Virtue. They meant it as the totality of moral and intellectual excellence, wisdom, courage, justice, and self-discipline. The four cardinal virtues of Stoic philosophy. Not as abstract ideals but as practiced, daily, moment-by-moment choices. Here is why this makes an unbreakable mind. Every other source of value can be stripped away. Your money can be lost. Your health can fail. Your relationships can end. Your reputation can be destroyed. Everything the world calls good can be taken. But your character, the kind of person you choose to be in each moment, that is irreducibly yours. No one can take it. No circumstance can destroy it. Even death only ends the practice. It does not erase what was built. The man or woman who has made virtue their highest value cannot be truly ruined by anything that happens externally. Because the thing they value most, the thing they have decided their life is actually about, is always available. It is always right here. In this choice. This moment. This response. This is why Marcus Aurelius could govern 50 million people and face the deaths of his children and endure decades of war and still write, privately, with no audience, words of such humility and grace that they read like the work of a saint. Because he had chosen what his life was for. And what it was for could not be taken. The sixth pillar, the practice of equanimity. Equanimity is perhaps the Stoic quality most misunderstood from the outside. It looks, from a distance, like coldness. Like disconnection. Like the Stoic simply does not care. But equanimity is not the absence of feeling. It is the mastery of your relationship to feeling. Think of the ocean. On the surface, in a storm, the waves are violent and dramatic, crashing, churning, chaotic. But 40 feet below the surface, the water is still. The same storm creates no movement there at all. An equanimous mind is like that depth. On the surface, in the face of genuine difficulty, genuine loss, genuine challenge, there may be emotion. Grief. Fear. Anger. These are not failures of Stoicism. They are proofs of humanity. But below the surface, in the depth of the trained mind, there is stillness. There is the unwavering recognition, I know who I am. I know what I value. I know what is mine and what is not. And nothing that happens on the surface changes what is down here. You build equanimity the same way the Stoics built everything, through practice. Every time something shakes you, every time the surface becomes turbulent, you practice going to the depth. You ask, what is actually real right now? What is mine to respond to? Who do I choose to be in this moment? You do not suppress the waves. You stop being only on the surface. Over time, through daily practice, through the habits we discuss on this channel, through the hard work of honest self-examination, the depth becomes your default. The surface becomes something you can observe with curiosity rather than be defined by. That is equanimity. And it is one of the most extraordinary things a human mind can build. The seventh pillar, amor fati, love what is. We have arrived at perhaps the most challenging and most beautiful of all Stoic ideas. Amor fati. Love of fate. Not acceptance of fate. Not tolerance of fate. Not resigned surrender to what you cannot change. Love. Nietzsche, who was profoundly shaped by the Stoics, wrote, "My formula for human greatness is amor fati, that one wants nothing to be different, not forward, not backward, not in all eternity. Not merely bear what is necessary, still less conceal it, but love it." The Stoics expressed the same idea in their own way. Marcus Aurelius wrote repeatedly of the need not merely to endure what comes, but to embrace it. To meet the whole of life, including its worst chapters, with a kind of fierce and loving acceptance. This is not passivity. Amor fati does not mean you do not try to change what can be changed. It does not mean you accept injustice or stop working toward better outcomes. It means this: for this moment, in this reality, you are not at war with what is. Because the energy spent resisting what has already happened, the catastrophizing, the rumination, the furious bargaining with a past that is fixed, that energy does not change the past. It only destroys the present. The person who practices amor fati does not move through the world with less intensity. They move through it with more. Because they are not leaking enormous reserves of themselves into the bottomless drain of resistance. They are fully here. Fully present to what is actually in front of them. And from that full presence, from that complete engagement with the reality that exists rather than the reality they wish existed, they act with a clarity and force that the resistant mind simply cannot access. This is the final, deepest freedom the Stoics offer. Not freedom from difficulty, but freedom within it. The eighth pillar, living in accordance with nature. The Stoics had a phrase that appears throughout their writing, kata phusin, live according to nature. For them, this had a specific and profound meaning that goes far beyond the modern interpretation of living simply or spending time outdoors. To live according to nature, for the Stoics, meant to live in accordance with your nature as a rational, social being. You are, by nature, a creature of reason. You have the capacity to examine your thoughts, choose your responses, build your character, and contribute to the world around you. That capacity is what makes you human. Using it fully, developing it, honoring it, refusing to let it be buried by distraction or comfort or fear, is what living according to nature means. You are also, by nature, a social being. Meant for connection, for contribution, for relationships of genuine depth. The Stoics were not advocates for isolation or self-sufficiency in the cold sense. Marcus Aurelius wrote extensively about our duty to one another, about the way in which each individual is part of a larger whole. When you build an unbreakable mind, you do not build it to stand apart from the world. You build it to be more fully present in it. To love better because you are not dependent on love to feel secure. To lead better because you are not driven by the need for approval. To give more fully because you are not imprisoned by the fear of losing what you have. An unbreakable mind is not a fortress that walls you off from life. It is what allows you to walk fully into it. The ninth pillar, the daily practice of philosophy. Everything we have discussed today is useless unless it becomes practice. The Stoics were ruthless about this. They had no interest in philosophy as a purely intellectual exercise, as something you think about but do not do. Epictetus was openly contemptuous of people who collected philosophical ideas as though they were possessions, who could quote the great thinkers brilliantly and live no differently because of it. He said, "Don't explain your philosophy. Embody it." An unbreakable mind is not built in one session of deep reflection. It is built in the ordinary moments, the daily, seemingly unremarkable moments, when you choose, again, to practice. The morning reflection. The journal. The deliberate examination of your thoughts. The voluntary discomfort. The reading of the ancient minds. The pausing before reaction. The asking of the Stoic question, is this within my control? Before acting on the emotion. These are not dramatic acts. They do not feel like the building of something great in the moment you do them. But a mind built this way, one ordinary practiced moment at a time, becomes, over years, something genuinely extraordinary. The philosopher William James wrote that a human being can alter his life by altering his habits of mind. The Stoics knew this 2,000 years before he did. And they built a system of daily practice specifically designed to make the alteration real, not as aspiration, but as lived experience. Your philosophy must live in your Tuesday afternoon. In the way you respond to the driver who cuts you off. In the way you handle the email that comes with bad news. In the way you treat the person serving your coffee and the person sitting across from you in the hardest conversation of your year. That is where it lives. Or it does not live at all. The 10th pillar, becoming the person who cannot be broken. We have arrived at the place where philosophy meets identity. Because ultimately, building an unbreakable mind is not about a collection of techniques. It is about becoming a certain kind of person. A person who has decided, at a level deeper than mood, deeper than circumstance, deeper than the shifting tides of fortune, who they are. Marcus Aurelius returned to this theme again and again in the Meditations. Not because he had mastered it easily, but because becoming required constant recommitment. Constant return to the question, who am I, and am I being that person right now? An unbreakable mind is not a destination you arrive at and then maintain effortlessly. It is a daily decision. A daily renewal of the choice to be a person defined by character rather than circumstance. By what you do rather than what happens to you. By the quality of your inner life rather than the conditions of your outer one. Epictetus, the man who was enslaved, who was beaten, who limped through his entire life with a damaged leg, looked at his life and said, "Seek not that the things which happen should happen as you wish, but wish the things which happen to be as they are, and you will have a tranquil flow of life." That is not the wisdom of a man who gave up. That is the wisdom of a man who discovered that the greatest power available to a human being is not the power to change what comes, but the power to choose who you are when it arrives. That power is available to you. Not someday. Not once you have built the right habits or read enough books or suffered enough or succeeded enough. Now. In this moment. In the next choice you make. You decide. What you heard today is not a program. It is not a system you install and forget. It is a way of being. A practice that begins today and, if you choose it, never ends. The men whose names opened this video, Epictetus, Marcus Aurelius, Seneca, they did not become unbreakable because they were exceptional by birth. They became unbreakable because they chose to practice. Every morning. Every day. Every moment that tested them. And they were tested. Enormously. In ways that make most modern challenges seem small. And still they held. Not because they were free from difficulty. But because they had built something inside themselves that difficulty could not reach. You can build that same thing. You already have the most important ingredient, the awareness that it is possible. The decision to take it seriously. The fact that you stayed with this until the end. That is not nothing. That is the beginning. And if what you heard today planted something real in you, if you are going to walk away from this video and actually begin, then do one more thing. Subscribe to this channel. Because this is a long road. And no one walks it best alone. Every week on this channel, we go deeper into the Stoic practice. We take the ancient wisdom and we make it practical for the life you are actually living, not the idealized life, not the easy life, but the real one, with its real difficulties and its real moments of choice. This community is made up of people who have decided they are no longer willing to be broken by the ordinary pressures of modern life. People who are building something in themselves that cannot be taken. If that is who you are becoming, subscribe. Hit the bell. Leave a comment below and tell me, what is the one idea from today that you are taking with you? I read every single one. Because that is what this is, not a broadcast. A conversation. Between people who have decided, together, that the life they want is worth the discipline it requires. Until next time. Guard your mind. Practice your philosophy. And remember. An unbreakable mind is not given. It is built.